Good evening, everybody. This is multiply and divide complex numbers. This is number 16. Now, the rule here hasn't changed. You're still going to look at that sign on the denominator, and you need to do the opposite sign on top and bottom. So I'm going to times by 3 plus I square root 5 on the numerator and the denominator. Okay, now we'll do the denominator first. Your trick will still work here. So you need to distribute or FOIL on the bottom, but you only need to do the first and the last terms because the middle will fall apart since this is a minus and this is a plus. So 3 times 3 will give you 9. And then you need to do the last term. So I have a negative I square root 5 times a positive I square root 5. So these are like ones in the front. So I have a negative 1 times a positive 1. That's going to be a 1. And it would be a negative 1. And then I have I times I, so that's I squared. And the square root 5 times the square root 5 would be the square root of 25. And the square root of 25 is just 5. So this is what we're getting so far on the denominator. So I'm going to keep working in the denominator and then I'll do the numerator afterwards. So I'm going to bring down this 9. And over here, 5 times negative 1 is going to be a negative 5I squared. And then this I squared basically says change the sign on this number here. So this is going to be 9 plus 5. And when you go to do this, 9 plus 5 is 14. And then we need to do the distributive property on the top, or I call it foiling. 3 times 3 is 9. And I usually don't miss any steps on this stuff. I write it out the way I have it. 3 times I square root 5 is 3I square root 5. When you're timesing a square root, they have to be underneath the square root to times them. So I don't really times this, I just put this number in the front. And then I need to go here. So I square root 5 times 3 is going to be 3I square root 5. And then my last term, I square root 5 times I square root 5, well, that's a 1 in the front and a 1 in the front, so 1 times 1 will give me 1. I times I is I squared, and square root 5 times square root 5 is the square root of 25, and the square root of 25 is just 5. Okay, so then we're going to combine here in the middle and simplify this a little bit better. So this is a 9 plus, and you're going to add the numbers in the front since these match. So 3 plus 3 would be 6I square root 5, and 5 times 1 would just be 5I squared. Alright, and then I need to simplify this here. So this is 9 plus 6I square root 5, and the I squared just says change the sign on this, so that's going to be a minus 5. Because I squared equals negative 1, 5 times negative 1 would be a negative 5. Then I need to come down here and do 9 minus 5. 9 minus 5 is 4 plus 6I square root 5. Okay, now we're almost done with this problem. The only thing is all of this will reduce. So I'm going to separate these first, and then I will reduce them after I separate these into 2 separate fractions. So 4 over 14 will reduce by 2 on top and bottom. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. And this will also reduce by 2 on top and bottom. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 3I square root 5 over 14 divided by 2 is 7. And you could leave your answer in this format. Or you could combine these back underneath one fraction. it doesn't really matter. I would accept either one of these answers. So this could be your answer or that could be your answer. You just need to realize that these two answers are the exact same thing. Okay, well, I hope this helps.